So once again, welcome to everybody and welcome to those who are physically present with us. It's beautiful to have you here. And to those also who follow faithfully online, I don't check the statistics on it, Google Analytics, but you are most welcome because I know that some of you are faithfully watching this and so on. Beautiful. I'm excited because I'm starting a new series of message after the prophetic month that we have had with the Feast of Israel. We're done with this. This, what I'm going to do right now, I never did it as far as teaching it. It's new to me to teach it. I studied it a long time ago. Actually, I forgot the year that I did the full exposition of what we call anthropology on your slide here, the Doctrine of Man. And I have a subtitle that will follow us because I will always use the same slide here, message number 1, and I don't know how the series will last. We're going to do it in a thorough way. And before I start with anthropology and what it means, I told you that I was desirous to make a character study. All of you knows that teacher or Bible camps, sometimes they do biblical characters, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Mary, Joseph, name them David, and they make series of messages about their lapse of faith, or what they did good, or what they did wrong, and so on. But having a discussion with my wife, I decided to study me, what I am, and what are you? What is man? Where are we coming from here? Of course, it's going to cover lapses and so on, but it's going to be more thorough than you might think, actually. What is anthropology here? It's the Greek word anthropos, of course, which means man or mankind. Okay, that's the meaning of the word. And it's followed by ology. That's the word in Greek, logos. It means the word of. So basically, simply put here, the doctrine of man. Anthropos, mankind. Logi, the word of. There is an anthropology that if you go to a secular university here in the area of cultural science or cultural socials and so on, in cultural science in the secular education system. You very well know that I'm not going to teach the secular system, although I will allude to that tonight and probably next week and so on. But our concern here is what is man biblically speaking. What are we before the fall, after the fall? Are we a dichotomy? Are we a trichotomy, tripartites or bipartites? I will address all these things with you, and you will discover more and more about yourself and so on, and ascribe glory to the Creator here. Right off the bat, that's why I'm glad to have Jan, because Jan is a biologist, Jan. I am not a biologist, and I am not a scientist. All right? It's clear and simple. All right? I have a degree. I don't want to say I hold a degree. You know that. And I avoid these letters type of thing. I am a theologian. Okay? Studied the scriptures, put messages together, put studies together using the full body of revealed truth and many commentaries, Hebrew texts, and name it, Greek texts. Some of you do it as well. Everybody that teaches the word or study the word is a theologian. Simple as this. You can be a good one and you can be a bad one. Like a doctor. Simple as this. You have theologians that are very shallow, don't embrace the proper view, and you have theologians that have the proper view and so on. I want this, not this, or my guiding or our guiding principles throughout these messages will be 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 to 6. I read it with you, okay? Okay, this will be my guiding principle, not to step outside the proper boundaries with Darwin and all that stuff. You are therefore right tonight for the next 40. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh. I don't remember having been kicked in the face for the last 25 years, even more than this. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but divinely powerful for the destruction of fortresses. Bold is very important. We are destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, and we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. It's bold because I'm going to use verse 5 only in the future. And we are ready to punish all disobedience whenever your obedience is complete. What are any lofty things against God? It's to ascribe millions of years between the days of creation. It is a lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, and it needs to be reprimanded. It's not acceptable. So that's why we will see as we move on what we do with all this. This will become conspicuous. We're destroying speculations, lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, and we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. This you will see. Every night, this will be my guiding principle to explain why I hold the view. You very well know that I am a creationist. I am a pure, hardcore creationist. I don't need to say it, you know that. But we need a study, and I'm going to need to address things here. Why this verse? Because it's in the scriptures. You can always back up your idea, even if you spend 20 minutes outside the scriptures, like I will do tonight. I have no choice, because since I need to be honest and thorough. I like thoroughness. I like to do things not halfway, not full-fledged, because I would need 5 months to do it, maybe a year, but good messages to go through stuff that we know. I'm going to need tonight to address what we call the wrong views, with difficult word. Of course, I'm going to need to address evolutionism. Darwinism, evolutionism goes together. And next week, yes, I will be alluding to the law of thermodynamics and more. The depleting energy, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about these things. The law of entropy, and so on and so forth. Then, after probably 2 messages of that kind of introduction, I will be moving into creationism, what was the man before the fall, blah, 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 what is made of, and so on and so forth. Don't miss it. It's too late to invite some people. They don't get the work of introduction right now. It's never too late, but they miss so much. Not because I'm good, at all. It's because it's interesting in itself. I repeat, I'm not a scientist. So, still even with no lengthy training, I'm not a scientist, but without any training in biology, without any training in science and so forth here, is it possible to adequately, when you speak to a people that is educated in these fields, and they are, let's imagine that we have a biologist atheist here, is it possible, it's not the case, we pretend, is it possible to refute politely, backed up with the scriptures, with no need to be intimidated when confronted by those in the field? Yes, it's possible. If you research your thing a little bit, yes, it is possible. Are you with me so far? Yeah. That was kind of a work of introduction. I'm not quite done. Now, topic to be addressed. Tonight, we cover wrong views, and we embark into evolutionism as well. And I will stumble over my words. There are some words that are difficult to say. So, what are the wrong views? Views that are wrong concerning anthropology, the doctrine of man from the Bible. Where are we from? One of the wrong view is Gnostic or Gnosticism. What does it teach in a sentence here? It teaches that the spirit of man, okay, the spirit should be a small s here, it's a mistake. That the spirit of man, not the Holy Spirit of man, is part of the divine essence, so it is incapable to sin. This is wrong. Okay? So it's wrong when you get into the scriptures. I repeat, it teaches that the spirit of man is part of the divine essence, and so it is incapable to sin. Okay? How do you refute that? 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1. Therefore, having these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all defilement, cleansing and defilement of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. So if the spirit cannot sin, how can it be defiled? And how can it be cleansed? So it's not sustainable, it's a wrong view. Ephesians chapter 4:23, and that you be renewed in the spirit of your mind. If you need to be renewed somewhere, it's because there is something that doesn't work properly. Need to change the battery or something like that, so it is a wrong view. The second one, we call it semi-Pelagianism. Pelagian/ism. What does it teach? Don't try to memorize these things. What does it teach? It teaches that the human spirit does not fall under the dominion of sin. Oh, yeah. This is senseless. That the human spirit does not fall under the dominion of sin. I gave you on this one, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 5. Even when we were dead in our transgression, made us alive. So if it does not fall under the dominion of sin, do you know what is the Greek expression? I'm going to give you the English for made us alive. Here, we have been quickened together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. So if it doesn't fall under the dominion of sin, how come the Spirit stands in need to be quickened by God? We have a human spirit when we're born, but it's dead. So again, it's semi-Pelagianism, and it's not proper. C, we discuss C right now. This one is tough to say. Annihilationism. Sorry for stumbling right there. To annihilate, basically. What does it teach? Falsely. Teaches that by sin we lose our spirit. When we sin the first time, we lose our spirit, and we regain it by regeneration. For, according to this view, we're born perfect. Okay? You already have a smile. According to that view, annihilationism, it teaches that we lose our spirit, and it's regained by regeneration or salvation. But this view also teaches that we're born perfect. But the scriptures in Galatians chapter 3:22 has shut up everyone under sin, so that the promise by faith in Jesus Christ might be given to those who believe. So if we're born perfect, how come it says there that everybody's shut up under sin? So it doesn't make sense. Again, annihilation is a false doctrine. Again, it says something else. Annihilationism also teaches that only believers live forever, and the unbelievers will be annihilated. Completely gone, no suffering and so on. It's not what I read in Daniel. In Daniel chapter 2, many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake. These is you and I, to everlasting life, but the others, to disgrace and everlasting contempt. It doesn't say to complete annihilation. Are you still with me? I need you to be with me for this. At least we have some scriptures attached to it. Now the fun part. We get into evolutionism, okay? Or Darwinism, but I like to call it, because we have many scientists, some better than ours, and I will give you some quotes in a moment. We have two types of people that are evolutionists, okay? Evolutionists. Two types of them here. They are on your outline already. We have the naturalistic evolutionist. This person is completely atheistic. Do you know what is the word atheistic? There is no God, okay? An atheist, he believes in nothing. So you have that naturalistic evolutionist here is completely atheist. God is left out of everywhere. Secondly, we have many among the churches today, and this is why I've chosen to do the message. You have the theistic evolutionist. They believe in God, but they will endorse the view of millions of years in between, and God is in need of science. Okay? They believe that there was a creation from God. God created all things, but it evolved, basically. It's a compromise between the two. There are a few books written about this here, and that's what we call the theistic evolutionist. And that is why these messages are done, because the churches are packed of them. And for me, this is a lofty thing, raises above the knowledge of God. It's not acceptable for the people of faith when all the passages on faith that we have, including one that my brother here read to us. Okay? Now, let's move on to capital A. Here was the two types, and that's why I repeat this slide. What we're doing to attempt here, we're destroying speculations and lofty things raised up against the knowledge of God. And we are taking every thought. When you start to contemplate this, what is taking every thought? As soon as we start to doubt, God reads the mind, knows the heart, knows everything. He scrutinizes your kidneys. You take that kind of thinking and you say, give it to you, Father. I give it to you, Jesus. Anything. Pornography, doubts about the salvation, anger, it's a practice. I take that kind of thinking to you, Lord Jesus. He is the one capable of doing that for you. And once again, when you teach that to the people in young age, you might save them from everything that we do together. Most of us, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, it's to do counseling with people. If a child is brought up properly with the scriptures in the proper context, you might, only might, save that person from having to go and see a counselor with their empty words. So take these thoughts captive. That's why I do that series again. Do I need to say something? Who's graduated from high school here? That's even in the Christian school. Okay? A few meters away from here. That's why my daughter basically was taught very little about creationism and so on. So she was basically taught by what? Probably a theistic evolutionist. Oh, it makes sense. Okay? So this is it. This is what I wanted to show you here. That's the influence of evolution. Now labeled by the people out there and even in Christian faith as no longer a theory, but a fact. So Darwin is no longer a theory for some of them. I will give you quotes in a moment of them, but a fact here. Okay? But it's still indeed a theory, and we will see a fellow called G.A. Kirkcott, who is a scientist who will be quite honest with the people and so on. So now I transfer on different notes here that I have, and we carry on with our thinking. So that's the horses. Does it make sense? 50 million years ago, 35, 26, 3 million years ago.
How can they measure it?
I'm going to give you the answer when I'm finished. I'm going to keep you in the parking lot and I will answer everything that you need to see there, okay? Just wanted to show you, borrowed of course from the internet. What's the influence of evolution? Everybody here that is in the 20th century, we are exposed to it and they take about as a fact right now, totally forgetting that this is a theory. Okay? Okay? And when they talk about it in churches or in the Christian realm, it's always on the parking lot. Everybody talks at the same time. 10 different views, 2 people talking together, and nobody finishes it in the proper way. Yeah, not nobody. Some finishes it in the proper way. And my goal as a humble man right now, it's to shed some light on it and comprehend these things in a more proper way. Maybe using some as a defense concerning these things. Okay? So capital B. Everybody know the Encyclopedia Britannica. This is something of renown. This is not a book on Mickey Mouse here. 14th edition, Evolution, quote. You don't have the quote. You listen to me reading right now. I'm reading this right now, what you have there. In one form or another, comma, such a theory of human descent as, in our time, become part of an accepted framework of zoology. How do you say that word? Zoology or zoology? Zoology. If not a demonstrable truth, at any rate, it is a working hypothesis which has no effective rival. Encyclopedia Britannica. So don't burn it, but just the corner. Okay? No effective rival. They say while it's not provable, evolutionism, they not being capable of being demonstrated, it is really the only working hypothesis possibly today without having a real rival. Mr. Julian Huxley, at random, a television preview, Issues in Evolution, Volume 3 of Evolution After Darwin, University of Chicago Press, page 41, quote, "The first point to make about Darwin's theory is that it is no longer a theory, but a fact. No serious scientist would deny the fact that evolution has occurred, just as he would not deny the fact that the earth goes around the sun. Darwinism removed the whole idea of God as the creator of organisms from the sphere of rational discussion. Darwin pointed out that no supernatural design was needed, since natural selection could account for any known form of life. There was no room for a supernatural agency in its evolution. There was no sudden moment during evolution history when the spirit was instilled into life, any more than there was a single moment when it was instilled into you. I think we can dismiss entirely all idea of supernatural overriding mind being responsible for the evolutionary process," end of quote. Google them. You will find the same thing as I do right now. C, how we define evolutionism. Jan can help you on this one. How do we define it? What's a non-complex definition for evolutionism? Here we go with this. We go with this right now. Number one, life arose from one simple original living cell. That's very basic here. Number two, it teaches that there has been a continuous change towards complexity. It teaches, number two, that there has been a continuous change towards complexity. It's kind of funny because I watch everything and it seems that the more we go, the more chaotic it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's complexity for me. It's something that it's a movement in a watch, in a Swiss movement. It's complex and it keeps the time, a Rolex. But it seems sometimes that I bought a watch from Walmart for $12. That makes the trick only for a year and a half, the duration of the battery. Evolutionism teaches that there has been a struggle for existence. We call it basically the struggle for existence here. We call it often called the survival of the fetus or natural selection. Number four, it teaches that millions of years are needed simply because evolution takes place very, very slowly. So these are the people that hold the views that the planet is millions of years, billions of years old, and so on and so forth, a view that I don't endorse. I believe in a younger Earth. You have my views on this. All right? So that's what they point out. The basic support of evolution here is this. Number one, mutation is a change in a sudden variation in the hereditary code, the DNA type of thing. Am I right? Okay. So basically you have a formula here. Mutation plus natural selection plus time equals, you read the sentence. You have the carbon C14 dating method. They go in circle. Take a rock, trying to put a date on it. Take a fossil, trying to put a date on it. They don't agree. They think in circle all the time, including the fossil records also. So that was the basic support. We're still on the issue of evolutionism. Because together we're destroying speculations, carbon C14, fossils, millions of years between the days of creation. Talk to these guys here. They read Hebrew, I think. Ask them if the text allows for billions of years or millions of years in between the days of creation. Ask them. And they don't stand in belief. We're destroying speculations in every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God. And we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. That's what we intend to do before we get into Vicky, what Vicky is and what I am, type of thing. The case against evolution, here we have a case against it. Let me clarify my notes here. It's capital E right here. It's with this man that I talked to you earlier. Google it. He's called Dr. G.A. Kirkut. He is not a believer. He is a scientist, but an honest person. We will read. I'll give you a long quote and a short quote also. Of the University of Swan, England. Physiology and biochemistry, terms that you know well. Implications of evolution, London, Pergamum, the 7 assumptions. Because he came up, Kirkut, with the 7 assumptions. It's when you assume something. Am I right? That's an assumption that will basically give a hard time to the hardcore Darwinist, if I can coin a word right now. Kirkut, Ibid, so on and so forth. Here, I give you basically a few quotes. Just practice you here, relax your hand here. You cannot note, you won't have time to make notes or whatsoever here right now. I give you a quote right now. This is Kirkut, unbeliever scientist. He's not a creationist. We are on somewhat stronger ground with the 7th assumption. I did not go through them. Namely, that the fish, amphibia, reptiles, birds, and mammals are interrelated. There is a fossil evidence to help us here, though many of the key transitions are not well documented. And we have yet to obtain a satisfactory method of dating. Honesty. The fossils. The dating is of utmost importance, for until we find a reliable method of dating the fossils, we shall not be able to tell if the first amphibians arose after the Choanithians, I don't know what it means, or whether the first reptile arose from the first amphibian. The evidence we have at present is insufficient to allow us to decide the answer to these problems. Well done, Mr. Kirkut. Thank you so much for being truthful with us, and so on. Kirkut, page 157, half-truths hindering progress. It's already an interesting statement. Cope with me, it's going to be a short message. Cope with me because I do a long reading, and forgive my accent and my stumbling over some words. It's not long. Kirkut, half-truths hindering the progress of it. It seems at times as if many of our modern writers on evolution have had their views by some sort of revelation, and they base their opinions on the evolution of life from the simplest form to the complex, entirely on the nature of specific and infraspecific evolution. It is premature, not to say arrogant, on our part, if we make any dogmatic assertion as to the mode of evolution of the major branches of the animal kingdom. It may be distressing for some readers to discover that so much in zoology is open to doubt, but this is in effect indicates the vast amount of work that remains to be done. Much of what we learn today are only half truths or less, and the student of tomorrow will not be bothered by many of the phlogiston that now torment our brains. Everything will seem simple and straightforward once it has been explained. Why then cannot we see some of these solutions now? Our reason is often that incorrect idea or fact is accepted and take place of the correct one. Most students become acquainted with many of the current concepts in biology while still at school at an age when most people are, on the whole, uncritical. Then, when they come to study the subject in more detail, they have their minds several half-truths. They have in their minds several half-truths and misconceptions, which tend to prevent them from coming to a fresh appraisal of the situation, period. In addition, with the uniform pattern of education, most students tend to have the same sort of education background, and so in conversation and discussion, they accept common fallacies and agree on matter based on these fallacies. This theory can be called the general theory of evolution, and the evidence that support it is not sufficiently strong to allow us to consider it as anything more than a working hypothesis. The answer to the problem of evolution will be found by future experimental work and not by dogmatic assertions that the general theory of evolution must be correct because there is nothing else that will satisfactorily take its place. Add off. Honesty, at least. Not declaring a fact that is not a fact here. Is an honest one, and I like that also. All right, I give you this. Oh, really? Again? Again. Okay, I think this is my last slide here. Again, this is my last slide indeed here. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war against the flesh. How many of you got into a fist fight lately? How many of you are now presently, currently, experiencing hard press in the spiritual realm? Daily. So when you look at these things or avoid these things, because these are weapons of the warfare and not of the flesh, but divinely powerful in the destruction of fortresses. Demonic. The Encyclopedia Britannica, it's demons. Demonic thinking. I don't care about how smart those who put these words together. It needs to be labeled for what it is. It's demonic thinking. Period. I have no other solution for that. May God forgive them. We are destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God. And we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, and we are ready to punish all disobedience whenever your obedience is complete. We can elaborate in different contexts, but I want what's in bold character, basically. In the next message, if you allow me to go back very quickly, I will go to this. I will finish evolutionism. I want to talk about the law of thermodynamics. Okay? The law of energy and so on and so forth. And then, not next week, but the third week of the messages, I'm going to talk about creationism. And I'm going to embark into lengthy passages of the Bible where I explain the origin of man, how man was created, why, before the fall, after the fall, and what man is made of, what is his destiny, what are we now, and so on and so forth. That part you will enjoy more than what I did today. But what I did today, the reason I read all these quotes, I like Kirkut. I don't mind about the other guys. I could read way more than this. There is a discussion, actually, very lengthy, that he has in class with his student. It's good. I wanted to do a skit with my wife, but it needs practice, and the time flies, so could not do it. I wanted to fake a student in class and act as Kirkut and ask, have you read Darwinism? Oh, Did you read 50 pages? Not quite. And this is it. And then you draw your conclusion type of thing. And he said, the student said, Professor, here's my assignment about the argument against evolutionism. It's short because I know that you don't want anything religious. And Kirkcott says, you're right. I do not want anything religious. I want you to find arguments about evolutionism from the scientific point of view. Yes, but teacher, there is none. He said, have you not read the three thing here that you need to read? The Bible, Kirkcott. What's the title of the Darwin book?
Theory of Evolution.
Theory of Evolution, or Das...
The origin of species.
No, yeah, but there is one that is Das...
You mean Das Kapital?
Das Kapital. That's what I wanted. Did you read these guys? No, Mr. Kirkcott. And you go with the view that you endorse that without having read this? And he mentioned the Bible first, but he doesn't go there. So I don't want anything religious. Please prove to me from science, give me arguments not for, against, apart from the Bible, apart from the religious, because the students, oh, there is a group of Protestants here that still believe in something else. I don't want that. And they cannot. Because he is an honest one by saying, hey, we have a long way to go, like I said tonight. I am done. That's what I wanted to share with you. Another message with different terms and biological terms and so on. Yes, Bill?
A point to make about evolutionism within the scientific community. The evolutionist scientists believe that things started from a single cell, as you mentioned, and are created into massive branches of complexity. Yet biologists and zoologists will tell you that the number of species is decreasing rapidly on Earth. They contradict one another.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's an extremely complex topic, but with evolutionism, you have to get to a cell. Where did the cell come from?
Yeah.
Because
That's what I'd like
you
to say.
cannot put
The
a
big
cell
bang
together, because you cannot build a cell without a factory pre-built to take your DNA and to code and make proteins and the like. Without the factory, you can't make the cell. Without the cell, you can't have the factory, so you have no beginning.
Completely lost.
Exactly.
Thank you. You helped me out, and you seem to agree with what you were exposed tonight. So I don't have a conclusion per se, except the conclusion that I offered to you. Please accept the conclusion. Pass the door that these teachings that are now accepted from the people out there as being fact, no longer theory, is completely improper. You don't need, like I said, I would like to go deeper. I'm not qualified to do this. This is not my area of expertise. I studied it years ago. This man here and Bill conclude what I wanted to hear. There is a lot of inconsistency, but there is a lot of Christians among us that can basically wreck the faith and wreck the beauty and not ascribing the glory at the right place. Now, I have something to tell you here. I have one song to play. You remain seated for this one. You never heard that. I never heard this as well, but it's beautiful. Okay? 3 things to notice in the song that are not proper. This is God singing to you or singing on the video to a baby. Okay? I'm disappearing off the screen right now. So, thank you. The message is over for now.